Imagine discovering the love of your life has been lying to you for years. Not just cheating, not just betrayal. She's been erasing you, piece by piece. Tonight, I'll tell you how I unraveled her web and why my revenge left her with nothing but the truth. This isn't a story about love, it's about survival. And trust me, you won't see the ending coming. The mirror never lies. Watch until the end. Chapter 1. The Illusion. Chicago's skyline glittered like a lie. Our penthouse smelled of jasmine candles and unspoken accusations. Clara stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, her silhouette sharp enough to cut glass. She'd just returned from another late meeting, her heels discarded by the door like evidence. "You missed the gallery dinner," she said, not turning around. The client needed revisions. Always revisions. Her laugh was a dry leaf crumbling. "You'd bury yourself in blueprints to avoid a conversation." I didn't argue. Arguing meant losing. Clara's words were traps disguised as confessions. That night, at the gallery fundraiser, she wore a dress the color of freshly split wine. Everyone watched her. She knew they watched. A collector laughed too loud at her joke about minimalist art being the echo of male insecurity. I sipped bourbon, the ice melting faster than my patience. "Ethan's the real artist here," she announced suddenly, fingers brushing my sleeve. "He builds entire worlds, but forgets to live in them." Polite laughter. A photographer snapped a shot. Clara's smile didn't reach her eyes. Later, in the bathroom, I found her old phone wedged behind a vase of orchids. The screen lit up with a notification. 7:30 p.m., room 214. Bring the contract. Her reflection appeared behind me in the mirror. "Looking for something? You tell me." She plucked the phone from my hand, her perfume souring the air. "Paranoia doesn't suit you, Ethan. You're not your father." The words were a scalpel. Precise. Familiar. She left me there, staring at the orchids. Their petals looked plastic under the fluorescent light. Chapter 2. Skeleton in the Closet. The fundraiser's noise buzzed in my skull like a trapped wasp. I waited until Clara vanished into a crowd of sculptors and critics before slipping back into the bathroom. The phone glowed faintly beneath the sink, discarded carelessly. My thumb hovered over the cracked screen. One unread message. "Unknown number. Can't wait to see you in red tomorrow. Room 214's view is better." The tiles felt cold against my forehead. Red. She'd worn a scarlet blouse yesterday, claiming it was for a donor lunch. I scrolled up. Dates, times, clipped phrases about contracts, and confidentiality. Her responses were clinical, but his dripped with hunger. "Ethan?" Claire's voice sliced through the hum of the ventilation fan. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. The gallery's ambient light haloed her, turning her into a shadow puppet. "Whose phone is this?" "Mine." She didn't blink. "Old work device. I keep it for emergencies." "Emergencies like room 214? Her sigh was a masterpiece of exasperation. "You're really doing this, here?" She stepped closer, heels clicking like a countdown. "That's Paul Renwick, a client. His wife collects Warhols. He's handsy. I keep him at bay with paperwork. And red blouses?" Her slap stung more than I expected. The sound echoed off the porcelain. "You're drunk," she hissed. "Pathetic. Just like your father picking fights when the world doesn't bend to you." The name hung between us, poison in the air. Father. The man who'd blamed the bottle for every fist, every broken promise. Clara knew where to twist the knife. "Check the phone," she said, tossing it onto the counter. "Check every email. You'll find invoices, contracts, and exactly zero proof of whatever delusion you're chasing." I didn't move. Her eyes dared me to doubt her, to need her. "You want to leave?" she whispered, lips grazing my ear. "Go ahead. But remember who held you together when your father died, who cleaned up your messes." The door swung open. A couple stumbled in, laughing, their champagne flutes sloshing. Clara smoothed her dress, her mask flawless again. "We're done here," she said, loud enough for them to hear. "I'll take a cab." The phone stayed on the counter. I waited until her footsteps faded before opening the gallery app. Hidden under a folder labeled taxes were photos. Clara laughing on a hotel bed. Clara wearing nothing but a man's tie. The timestamp, 2 days after our anniversary. The tie was mine. Chapter 3. The Fall. The gallery's opening night was a masquerade of glass and whispers. Clara's latest exhibition, Fragments of Truth, featured mirrors shattered and reassembled into grotesque shapes. How fitting, I thought. She stood near the centerpiece, A twisted chrome spiral, chatting with a man in a tailored navy suit. Mark Voss, her business partner. Ethan! She waved me over, her voice syrup thick. Mark was just admiring your Tribune Tower redesign. He thinks it's… What was the word? Bold, Mark said, grinning. His teeth were too white. Almost radical. But I hear the commission's hesitant? Clara's hand settled on my arm. Ethan's always been too pure for politics. Isn't that right, darling? The champagne flute in my hand trembled. She'd used that tone before saccharin, edged with arsenic. Excuse me, I muttered, heading toward the balcony. Cold air bit my lungs. Chicago sprawled below, a circuit board of lies. Behind me, laughter bubbled like acid. Running again? Clara leaned against the railing, her sequin dress catching the moonlight like scales. Why bring me here? I asked. To perform? To remind you what's at stake. She flicked ash from her cigarette. You've been distant, distracted. People notice. What people? Mark? Her smile sharpened. Jealousy's beneath you, Ethan, though I suppose it's genetic. The crowd inside erupted in applause. A waiter slipped onto the balcony, refilling her glass. She waited until he left. You think I don't see you? Snooping through emails, following me. You're transparent. And you're a liar. The words hung, raw and bloodied. Clara took a slow sip, her eyes never leaving mine. Careful, she murmured. You're in my gallery, my world. One word and every door here slams shut on your career. The threat coiled between us. Real, familiar. She stepped closer, her breath warm against my jaw. Go home, we'll talk when you're sober. I'm not drunk. Aren't you? Her laugh was a blade. You've been drunk on self-pity since the day we met. The balcony doors swung open. Mark emerged, flanked by critics. Clara's posture shifted instant Lopen, inviting. There you are, Mark said. We're toasting your genius, Clara. Join us? She linked her arm through his. Of course. Ethan was just leaving. Something snapped. You've been sleeping with him. The words tore through the chatter like gunfire. A critic dropped her clutch. Mark froze, his grin brittle. Clara tilted her head. A panther assessing prey. Sleeping with him? Oh, Ethan. She turned to the crowd now spilling onto the balcony. My husband thinks loyalty is a flaw. That wanting more life, more art makes me a whore. Clara. Number, let's be honest. Her voice rose, sharpened. You're a cuckold. A man who'd rather build castles in the air than face his own emptiness. And you're terrified I'll outgrow you. Silence. Even the city seemed to hold its breath. She plucked the champagne flute from my hand and drained it. Good night, Ethan. Mark followed her inside, his hand grazing the small of her back. The crowd parted, their stares scalding. I drove for hours. Lakeshore Drive blurred into a smear of taillights. My phone buzzed once, twice. I pulled over near an abandoned dock. Caller ID, Clara. I answered. Wind whistled through the receiver. Then her voice cracked and small. I love you. You're the only one who understands. The line went dead. Our bedroom was empty when I returned. She left her suitcase open, clothes spilling like entrails. Beneath a silk blouse, I found 2 first-class tickets to Miami. Passenger name, Mark Voss. Departure, tomorrow. Chapter 4. The Silence After Thunder. The house felt like a museum of our failures. Clara's perfume lingered in the hallway, a ghost of her presence. I stood in her study, the one room she'd always deemed off-limits, her sanctuary of spreadsheets and contracts. The lock on her filing cabinet was flimsy of petty defiance. Inside, folders bulged with bank statements, all under a name I didn't recognize. Lila Mercer. Lila Mercer. The alias tasted bitter. Transfers to offshore accounts dated back 3 years. Monthly deposits labeled consulting fees. The numbers bled into 6 figures. My hands shook. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd built a parallel life. The landline rang. I let it. 3 rings, then silence. A minute later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ethan, please. Her voice trembled, a flawless performance. We need to talk, face to face. Why? So you can gaslight me in stereo? A pause, a muffled breath. I'm at the cafe, the one where you proposed. That cafe. Rain had soaked through my jacket that day. She'd laughed, saying yes before I finished the question. Now, the memory felt staged. I'm not your audience anymore, Clara. Then why are you in my office? Ice shot through my veins. I turned slowly. The security camera above the door stared back, its red eye unblinking. She'd watched me. Of course she'd watched. "You left tickets to Miami," I said. "Subtlety's never been your flaw." Miami was a mistake, a distraction. Mark means nothing, but Lila Mercer does. Silence, then a click. The camera's light died. Her laptop glowed in the dark. Password, our anniversary. Predictable. The desktop was a grid of folders, gallery, contracts. Tax returns, personal. Inside personal, a subfolder. E. Photos, dozens. Me asleep at my desk, me arguing with a client on Zoom, me scrolling through her old phone in the bathroom. Time-stamped, cataloged, a chill crept up my spine. She documented my every doubt, my every lapse. A video file dated 2 months ago. Clara, wearing my favorite shirt, smirking at the camera. If you're watching this, you've finally grown a spine. Too late, though. By now, you've seen counts, the tickets. You're wondering how long I've planned this. Longer than you'd believe. She leaned closer, her smile venomous. "You think you're the victim? You handed me the scalpel, Ethan. Every insecurity, every fear, you taught me where to cut." The video ended. The screen blurred. I drove to Lucas Cole's studio at dawn. His name had surfaced in her emails. Lucas, the photographer. Burn him. The loft reeked of developer fluid. He answered in a stained hoodie, eyes bloodshot. "She sent you? I need to know what happened between you two." He snorted. "You're her husband. Ask her. She accused you of harassment. Got you blacklisted." His laugh was a dry cough. "Harassment? I rejected her. She offered me a solo exhibit in exchange for flexibility. I refused. Next day, galleries got anonymous letters. Screenshots, all fake. Why come forward now? Who'd believe me? You didn't." He handed me a USB drive. From the night she harassed me, security footage. She threatened to ruin me if I didn't play along. The file showed Clara, poised in Lucas's doorway, holding a contract. Her voice crisp on the audio. "Talent's cheap, Lucas. Loyalty's expensive. Choose." Back home, I replayed the footage. Then I opened the security app, scrolling back months. Nights I'd worked late. Clips of Clara in my office, lingering over my desk. One video caught her pausing at my computer, typing. Zooming in, she logged into my cloud drive. Deleted files. My files. The Trib Tower blueprints. The client had blamed me for the corrupted data. The final clip. Last week. Clara smashing her fist into a mirror. Blood dripped down her knuckles as she whispered, "I hate you for making me do this." To herself? To me? My phone lit UPA calendar alert. Meeting with Detroit client, 9 a.m. I deleted it. Instead, I booked a flight to Nevada. Chapter 5. The Archive. Lucas's loft felt like the inside of a film canister dark, chemical-scented, cluttered with negatives hung like ghosts. He chain-smoked by the window, watching me dissect the USB drive's contents. "She targeted others," he said. "A sculptor in Brooklyn. A curator in LA, all discredited after saying no to her. The files confirmed it. Emails forged, careers torpedoed. Clara's signature move, weaponizing vulnerability. A sculptor's rehab stint became a liability. A curator's divorce was spun as instability." "Why keep this?" I asked, pointing to the damning folders. "Insurance." Lucas smirked. "Thought about leaking it myself, but she's got friends in places that matter." "Not anymore." He raised an eyebrow. "You're really going to war?" I didn't answer. My laptop hummed, decrypting files from Clara's hidden cloud backups she'd stored under Lila Mercer. Bank logs, encrypted chats, a dossier titled Contingency. "Jesus," Lucas muttered, peering over my shoulder. "She's been siphoning your accounts for years. How'd you not notice? She handled the finances. Said I'd stress over the decimals." He snorted. "And you believed her?" The question hung like a noose. I clicked open a video Clara in her study, addressing the camera coldly. "If you're seeing this, Ethan, congratulations. You've graduated from pawn to opponent. Let's see how long you last." Lucas whistled. "She's psychotic. She's thorough." We dug until dawn. Every file carved deeper. Falsified tax returns, manipulated bids for her gallery contracts, even a shell company funding my rival's firm. Her revenge wasn't impulsive, it was architectural. My phone buzzed. Clara's number. "Aren't you going to answer?" Lucas asked. I let it ring, The voicemail blinked red. Ethan, I know you're with him. Lucas is a liar, a predator. Whatever he's shown you, it's... I deleted it. She's scared, Lucas said. She's calculating. The flight to Nevada was a blur. I rented a Jeep, drove 2 hours into the desert, and stood on the cracked earth where my secret project would rise a bunker-like structure designed to withstand corrosion. Or maybe to contain it. My phone lit up with a location alert. Clara's Mercedes had left our garage, headed north, toward Lucas's loft. I called him. She's coming to you. What? Play along. Record everything. I'm not your soldier, Ethan. You want to clear your name? This is how. Silence. Then a sigh. If I end up in a ditch, you won't. Back in Chicago, I broke into Mark Voss's apartment. Key code. Clara's birthday. His place reeked of cologne and paranoia. A locked drawer yielded envelopes stuffed with cash $10,000 stacks, each labeled LM. Lila Mercer. Beneath them, a contract. Mark's gallery would receive 20% of Lila's offshore funds in exchange for laundering bids. Clara's cut, 50%. The math was elegant, brutal. My phone vibrated a video from Lucas. Clara, framed in his doorway, her voice honeyed. We could have been magnificent, Lucas. Now look at you. A rat in a cage. And you're what? A queen? I'm inevitable. The video cut as she stepped inside. At midnight, Lucas called. She offered me a deal. Retract my lies, and she'll make me the next Leibovitz. What'd you say? Told her I'd rather eat my lens. A pause. Then, quieter. She mentioned Nevada. Knew you'd been there. The desert wind howled in my memory. What else? She said you're building a tomb, not a house. That you'll bury yourself alive. I hung up and opened the security feed. Clara stood in my office, running a finger over my desk. She leaned into the camera, lips parting. You forgot your keys, darling. She dropped them into a glass of water, smiling as the feed died. Chapter 6. Mirror Maze. The Nevada desert stretched endlessly, a sea of dust and bones. My boots crunched over the cracked earth as I surveyed the Cytia skeletal frame of steel beams rising defiantly against the barren horizon. This bunker, my tomb as Clara called it, was supposed to be my rebirth, a place to study decay, to master it. But the air hummed with unease. My burner phone buzzed, an encrypted message. She knows about the permits. Fix it, friend. I stared at the screen. Friend. The informant had been drip-feeding tips for days anonymous, precise, always one step ahead of Clara. I'd followed their advice, rerouted funds, doctored blueprints, even planted false invoices in Mark's office. But trust? That died with the wedding photos. Back in the rented Jeep, I dialed Lucas. Did you send the Nevada files? Not my style. I prefer glitter bombs over espionage. Static filled the line. Then, a woman's voice, husky and unfamiliar. Check the eastern trench, before sundown. The call died. The trench was a gash in the earth, deeper than I'd ordered. At the bottom, a metal box gleamed. Inside, a USB drive and a note. You're welcome. F. The drive contained surveillance footage Clara, 2 days prior, in a downtown Las Vegas bank. She wore a wig, but her laugh echoed through the lobby as she handed the teller a forged deed. My deed. The land under the bunker was now tied to Lila Mercer. Clever, I muttered. She'd planned to steal the project before it began. The note's back held coordinates. A warehouse near Reno. The warehouse stood isolated, its corrugated walls peeling under the sun. Inside, mirrors lined every surface, fracturing the light into a dizzying maze. My reflection splintered into 100 Ethans, each more hollow than the last. You're late. A woman emerged from the shadows mid -40s, sharp cheekbones, a scar slicing through her eyebrow. Her stance screamed ex-military. Who are you? Someone who's wasted years cleaning Clara's messes. She tossed me a file. I was her first. The photos spilled out. Clara at 22, arm in arm with this woman outside a New York gallery. Danielle Cole, co-owner. We built that gallery from nothing, Danielle said. Then she funneled debts into my name. Framed me for embezzlement. I did 6 months in Rikers before the charges mysteriously dropped. Why come forward now? Because you're her masterpiece. She pointed to the file. A psychiatric evaluation Clara's from college. Diagnosed with narcissistic sociopathy. Buried by her family's money. She doesn't love. She collects. Danielle lit a cigarette, the flame trembling. And when she's done, she shatters her toys. My phone rang. Clara. Darling, missed you at the zoning meeting. Pity your lawyer fainted when they revoked your permits. You're predictable, Clara. Always attacking what you fear. Her pause was a victory. You've found a new pet, haven't you? Let me guess better. Bruised and convinced I'm the devil? Danielle stiffened. You're just a ghost, I said, and I'm done haunting you. Clara's laugh slithered through the speaker. Ghosts don't bleed, Ethan, but you will. The line went dead. Danielle nodded to the mirrors. She'll come for you here. This place, it's hers. Between the glass panels, faint etchings caught the light CG on every surface. Clara's initials, her labyrinth. Then let's burn it, I said. As dusk fell, we doused the walls in gasoline. The mirrors warped under the heat, reflections melting into grotesque parodies. Danielle lobbed a match. Flames roared, swallowing Clara's maze in a chorus of shattering glass. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. You'll regret that. I replied, watch me. Chapter 7. The Unraveling. The desert nights in Nevada are pitch black, the kind of dark that swallows sound. I stood at the edge of the bunker site, Danielle's flashlight cutting through the void as we scanned the half-built structure. The steel beams loomed like rib bones, the air thick with the acrid smell of recent welding. She'll hit here first, Danielle said, kicking a loose stone into the abyss below. This place is your heart. She'll carve it out. Let her try. My phone buzzed a notification from the security feed. Motion detected at the perimeter. Grainy footage showed a figure slipping through the fence, hooded, carrying a duffel bag. Danielle cursed. You said the cameras were secure. They were. We moved silently, flanking opposite sides of the site. The intruder knelt near the generator, the duffel bag unzipped. Tools glinted in the moonlight. Wire cutters, a soldering iron. Stop. I stepped into the open, my voice steady. You're trespassing. The figure turned. Not Clara. Mark Voss. His face was gaunt, eyes bloodshot. She made me do this, he muttered, fumbling with a coil of wire. Said she'd release the photos, the ones from Miami. My wife. Photos? Danielle emerged behind him, a crowbar in hand. Mark flinched. Clara's got leverage on everyone. Even you. He glared at me. Especially you. The generator hummed, too loud, too steady. What's in the bag, Mark? He lunged. Danielle tackled him, the crowbar clattering into the dirt. The duffel spilled plastic explosives, timers, enough to collapse the bunker's foundation. She wants it gone. Mark spat. Wants you gone. Danielle zip-tied his wrists. Call the cops. Now. I dialed 911, but the line crackled dead. Clara's voice cut through the radio on Mark's belt. Ethan, look up. A drone hovered overhead, its camera blinking. On the screen, bolted to its belly, live footage of my apartment in Chicago. Clara sat cross-legged on our bed, flipping through a photo album. Our album? Remember this? She held up a snapshot us at Lake Michigan, laughing. You said you'd drown if I ever left. Dramatic, even then. What do you want? A trade. Mark for the real prize. The drone's camera panned to the bunker's control room. A shadow moved inside. Lucas. He followed you. Clara sighed. Loyalty really is a disease. The feed cut to Lucas tied to a chair, gagged, a bomb vest strapped to his chest. Timer, 10 o'clock. Danielle froze. She's bluffing. Am I? Clara's smile filled the screen. Tick-tock, Ethan. Save your friend or save your tomb. Mark writhed on the ground. She'll kill him. She doesn't bluff. The timer ticked. 9:59, 9:58. Danielle grabbed my arm. This is a trap. The bunker's rigged. I know. Then leave him. Lucas's eyes widened on the feed, pleading. I dragged him into this. Another pawn, another casualty. I ran. The control room door creaked. Lucas's muffled screams echoed off the concrete. The bomb vest wires snaked around him, red and blue intertwined. Clara's voice piped through a speaker. Red or blue, Ethan? You've got 90 seconds. Don't, Danielle barked from the doorway. She's hurting you. Lucas shook his head violently, tears streaking his face. I knelt, tracing the wires. It's a dummy. Has to be. 73 seconds? What's his life worth? Danielle radioed the cops again. Static. Cut the red. Lucas mumbled through the gag. What? Red. I hesitated. Clara's laugh crackled. 50 seconds. Does he live, or do you? Danielle shouldered past me, knife in hand. Move. She sliced the blue wire. The timer stopped at number 7. Silence. Then Lucas's choked sob. Danielle untied him. Told you, Bluff! A click echoed overhead. The drone dropped a small package through the skylight. It landed at my FIDA-mirrored box. Inside, a syringe and a note. For when the guilt sets in. C. Lucas stumbled outside, retching. Danielle picked up the syringe. Ketamine, enough to kill. Or forget, I said. The radio sparked to life. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Go, Danielle said. I'll handle Mark. And Clara? She pocketed the syringe. She's already gone. Back in Chicago, the apartment reeked of her perfume. The photo album lay open on the bed, our faces scratched out. Underneath, a single line in her looping script. You should have picked blue. Chapter 8. Cracks in the glass. The safe deposit box was buried in a bank I'd never heard of, tucked between a pawn shop and a liquor store in a part of Chicago even the gentrifiers ignored. The key had arrived anonymously, slipped under my office door with a Polaroid of Clara at 25, her hair shorter, her smile sharper standing outside the same bank. On the back, scribbled in her handwriting, "You'll need this when the mirrors break." Danielle waited in the Jeep, engine running. This reeks of a setup. Everything does now. The vault smelled of mildew and regret. Box 214 held a single USB drive and a stack of letters bound by a silk ribbon. To Ethan, from C dates stretching back a decade. Letters I'd never received. The 12th of June, 2013. You'll never read this, but I need to say it. I chose you because you were broken, not despite it. Broken things are easier to reshape. The 8th of March, 2015. Your father called again. Drunk, crying, asking for money. I told him you were dead. You're welcome. The 31st of October, 2017. I miscarried today. You were at the office, saving the skyline. The doctor said it was a girl. I'm glad. Daughters always see through their mothers. The world tilted. I gripped the cold metal shelf. Miscarried. We'd never tried for kids, never even discussed it. But the dates aligned with the trip to Parisa food poisoning night she'd spent locked in the bathroom, screaming at me to leave. The USB contained audio files. He'll never suspect. Clara's voice, younger, buoyant. The inheritance is his trigger. Mention the old man's drinking, and he folds. A man chuckled. And if he finds out, he won't. I'm his redemption story, his proof he's not his father. The man's voice curdled my blood. Dr. Robert Hale, my therapist, the one who'd helped me grieve my father's death, the one who'd convinced me to propose. Footsteps echoed in the vault hall. Danielle appeared, breathless. We need to go, now. Did you know? I shoved the letters at her. About the baby? About Hale? Her face paled. I knew she manipulated your therapy, not the rest. The Jeep screeched into traffic. Danielle gripped the wheel, knuckles white. Hale's clinic shut down years ago, malpractice suits. Clara testified in his favor. They were partners. Worse, co-conspirators. She tossed me her phone, a screenshot, Hale's offshore deposits, payments from Lila Mercer. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, Ethan. Hale's voice was a nicotine stain. I'd say it's good to hear you, but we both know better. You sold her my head. She sold me yours. Your fears, your dream-sol currency to her. But then, you already knew that. Why call? Because she's done with you. And I'm nostalgic. A notification popped up, a live feed from my apartment. Clara, draped in my old Yale sweatshirt, pouring gasoline over the couch. She's burning it all, Hale said. Every photo, every shirt, every proof you existed. You're becoming a ghost, Ethan, just like your father. Danielle swerved onto the shoulder. What's happening? I showed her the feed. Clara struck a match, her face serene in the flicker. Drive. We made it in 8 minutes. The building smoldered, flames licking the penthouse windows. Fire trucks barricaded the street. No survivors, they said. No bodies. In the crowd, a woman stood watching. Her hood pulled low. Not Clara. Younger. Familiar. Lila Mercer. I lunged, but Danielle held me back. Don't. That's not her. Lila turned, her eyes widening. Recognition. She bolted. We chased her into an alley, cornering her beside a dumpster. She yanked off her wig-brown curls, streaked with pink. Not Lila. Kate. My college intern. The one who'd quit abruptly last year, citing panic attacks. She paid me, Kate trembled, clutching a burner phone. To play Lila, to keep you chasing shadows. Where is she? Gone. She said you'd understand eventually. The phone buzzed. A text. Ask Kate about the fire. Danielle gripped Kate's wrist. What fire? The cabin, up north, where she sent me to plant the gas cans. My lungs constricted. The cabin, where my father died. Claire's final laugh echoed in my skull. You handed me the scalpel. Chapter 9. Inheritance. The road to the cabin was swallowed by pines, their shadows clawing at the Jeep's headlights. Danielle drove, her jaw set. Kate sat shackled in the back seat, hiccuping sobs. She told me to leave the cans by the fireplace. Said it was a prank. A prank, I repeated. I didn't know about the old man, I swear. My father's face flickered in my memory-ruddy cheeks, eyes glassy with bourbon. The last time I saw him alive, he'd thrown a bottle at my head. You're weak, just like your mother. The cabin emerged like a scar. Charred beams jutted skyward. The roof had collapsed years ago. Fireweed choked the foundation. Danielle cut Kate's zip ties. Show us. Kate led us to the ruins of the stone hearth. Beneath ash and rot, a rusted gas can lurked. This where you left them? She nodded. Clara said he'd smell it. Wake up. Have time. But he didn't, I said. Danielle crouched, brushing soot from a melted picture frame. A photo survived, barely. My father at 20, grinning on a Navy ship. Clara must have planted it. A taunt. My phone buzzed a video file, time-stamped the night he died. Security footage from the cabin's porch. Grainy, soundless. Clara, younger, her hair tucked under a hood, placing gas cans by the door. My father staggers out, shouting. She steps closer, hands raised innocent. He grabs her arm. She slips free, darting to her car. He stumbles after her, tripping. Falls. Doesn't get up. She watches. Lights a cigarette. Leaves. The fire started an hour later. Danielle's voice was steel. She provoked him. Knew he'd chase her, knew he'd fall. And the gas? Back up, in case the fall didn't kill him. Kate vomited into the weeds. I stared at the ruins. All these years, I'd blamed him. His weakness. His rage. But Clara had scripted his death like a gallery, opening calculated, curated. Why? My voice cracked. Control, Danielle said. She needed you hollow, guilty, perfect clay. We found the journals buried under the cabin's floorboards, wrapped in oilcloth. My father's slanted script. The 12th of April, she came again, says Ethan's ashamed of me, that I'm a burden. I told her to burn in hell. The 3rd of June, she offered me money, $50 K to disappear. Told her I'd rather drink piss. The 31st of October, the girl's poison, but she's right. I'm gonna die here. Alone. The last entry, dated 3 days before the fire. Danielle flipped through the pages. He knew. At the end, he knew. And I let her comfort me. The memory curdled Clara holding me at the funeral, whispering, he's at peace now. Kate tried to run. Danielle tackled her, knee pressed to her spine. Please, Kate whimpered. I just needed the money. For what? I asked. My brother. He's in a clinic. Clara said she'd stop his meds if I... Danielle released her. Go, disappear. Kate scrambled into the trees. You believe her? I asked. Does it matter? Danielle lit a cigarette, the flame trembling. Clara's a cancer. Cut her out, or let her consume you. My phone buzzed. Clara's number. Unknown. You're standing where he died. Do you feel closer to him, or to me? I typed, you're next. Chapter 10, Ashes. The bunker's floodlights carved a jagged halo in the desert night. I stood at the center of the structure, walls lined with screens looping every humiliation, every lie, every fracture Clara had ever engineered. Footage of her with Mark, audio of her mocking me to hail, the security clip of her watching my father die. She arrived in a black SUV, alone, dressed in white a funeral shroud or a surrender flag. Her hair was shorter, dyed jet black, but her smirk remained. You look terrible, Ethan. You look desperate. She circled the room, trailing a finger over the screens. Her reflection multiplied, a hall of broken Claras. This is your masterpiece? A montage of your victimhood? Number, I tossed her the USB drive labeled contingency. Yours. She caught it, eyebrow arched. Copies already leaked, I assume? Blogs, galleries, the Times? Everywhere. Even your father's country club. Her mask slipped a flicker of rage. You think this ruins me? I'll rebuild. I always do. Not this time. I nodded to the largest screen. Live footage of her offshore accounts draining, digit by digit. Lila Mercer's dead, and you're indigent. She lunged, nails raking my cheek. I didn't flinch. You're nothing, she spat. A hollow man playing vigilante. Maybe. I gripped her wrist, forcing her to face the central screen a live feed of her mother's penthouse. Police swarmed the lobby. But you're out of allies. Out of lies. Even Hale singing to the FBI. Her breath hitched. For the first time, fear flickered in her eyes. Why? Her voice frayed. You loved me once. I loved who I thought you were. But she never existed. She laughed, sharp and broken. You're right. She didn't. Her hand slid into her jacket. A pistol glinted. But neither do you. The shot echoed. The screen behind me shattered. She fired again, missed. Danielle emerged from the shadows, disarming her in 3 moves. Clara crumpled, cursing, as Danielle zip-tied her wrists. Call the cops, Danielle said. It's over. I knelt beside Clara. You lost. She smiled, blood staining her teeth. Did I? Look at you. Hollow, alone, mine. The sirens wailed. She leaned closer, her whisper a venomous kiss. You'll miss me, every day. And that's your life sentence. They took her at dawn. No struggle, no tears. Just a cold stare as the cuffs clicked. Danielle handed me a bourbon flask. What now? Nevada. Finish the bunker. To study toxins? To understand why we let them consume us. She nodded, walking away. The desert swallowed her silhouette. At the airport, I spotted Clara in the security line. Her head shaved, wrists raw from cuffs, flanked by agents. Our eyes met. You'll miss me, she mouthed. I turned off my phone. Chapter 11. New project. Nevada's sun bleached the desert into a fever dream. The bunker hunkered low against the horizon, its concrete walls scarred with graffiti from local kids who thought it a relic of some Cold War paranoia. Inside, the lab hummed a maze of steel tables, glowing monitors, and glass tanks where toxins bloomed in petri dishes like alien flora, aconite, ricin, nightshade. I cataloged their effects, my handwriting sharpening with each entry. Control, I told myself. Understanding. But the shadows on the walls whispered otherwise. Danielle's last text lingered on my phone, unanswered. You're not her. Don't become him. I poured a bourbon, the ice cracking like old bones. The monitors played security feeds from the site coyotes skulking past barbed wire, tumbleweeds caught in the fence. Then, movement. A figure in a gray hoodie slipped through the perimeter. Motion detected. Sector 3. The AI's voice was calm, sterile. I zoomed in. Lucas. His face was gaunt, a bruise yellowing his jaw. He'd followed me here. Of course he had. I met him at the airlock. You're lost. You ghosted everyone. The cops, your firm, me. His voice frayed. She's gone, Ethan. Let it die. Why are you here? He shoved a thumb drive into my hand. Footage from her trial. They're calling it a mental breakdown. Probation, not prison. She'll be out in months. The drive felt like a live wire. And you're hiding in a goddamn tomb. He kicked the steel door, the clang reverberating. You won. Now live. I stepped closer, the bourbon bitter on my tongue. You think I'm hiding? I'm documenting. Every poison, every lie they leave patterns, weaknesses. For who? Her? For me. He left at dusk, tires spitting gravel. The drive stayed on my desk, blinking like a mute accusation. I dreamt of the cabin, not as ruins, but whole smoke curling from the chimney, my father's laughter rattling the windows. Clara sat beside him, both sipping bourbon. Join us, she said, patting the couch. It's warmer here. I woke sweating. The lab's air tasted metallic, suffocating. On the monitors, a figure approached the bunker. Hooded, female. I grabbed the pistol from the safe. Identify yourself. My voice boomed through the external speakers. The figure froze, hands raised, hood fell back. Kate. I'm alone, her voice crackled through the intercom. Clara sent a message. I'm done with her games. It's not a game. She pressed an envelope to the camera, single Polaroid. Clara in a prison jumpsuit, smiling. On the back, you forgot something. I opened the airlock. Kate thrust the photo at me. She said you'd understand. The Polaroid was a decade old, us at Coney Island, mid-laugh. But in the background, barely visible. My father's face, blurred, watching. He was there, I muttered. She's been seeding these for years. In case you ever woke up. The room tilted. Why tell me now? Because she's still winning. Kate's eyes glistened. And I'm tired of being her puppet. She left the envelope on the steel table. Inside, a key. Storage unit 214. Chicago. The unit smelled of dust and diesel. Inside, a single mirror leaned against the wall, the one from our bedroom, cracked spiderwebbing its surface. Taped to the back, a flash drive labeled Ethan's epilogue. I plugged it in. Clara filled the screen, her prison jumpsuit stark under fluorescent lights. Hello, darling. If you're here, you finally took the bait. I knew you couldn't resist an ending. She leaned closer, the camera distorting her features. You think you exiled me? I chose this. A reset. New name, new face while you rot in that desert, dissecting our rot. The video cut to security footage me, sleepless in the lab, rewatching her trial. Pathetic. You're still my favorite project. The screen died. I drove back to Nevada, the mirror rattling in the trunk. At dawn, I hung it in the lab, its cracks catching the light. Danielle found me months later, the desert blooming with spring's false promise. She stood in the doorway, a duffel slung over her shoulder. Heard you're the new hermit of Highway 95. Here to save me? Here to work. She tossed the duffel onto a cot. Toxins, right? I know a few. We didn't speak of Clara. Didn't need to. But some nights when the monitors flicker and the samples mutate, I catch my reflection in the cracked mirror. It smiles. Not mine. Hers. I pour another bourbon. The desert swallows the stars. Did I escape her? Or did she become the air I breathe? Comment your truth. Subscribe if you're not afraid of yours.